Well, Miss Dean, it would be a charitable deed to tell me something of my neighbor, so be good enough to sit and chat an hour.
Oh, certainly, sir. I'll just fetch a little sewing, and then I'll sit as long as you please. It all started with late Mr. Earnshaw, the original owner of Wuthering Heights, taking a trip to Liverpool and spotting an unfortunate scraggly orphan on the street. After bringing him back to Wuthering Heights, he donned the little lad Heathcliff and chose him as his favorite and spoiled him. Other young ones in the dwelling of Wuthering Heights included Catherine and Henley, who both resented Heathcliff, but Catherine grew to love him. Henley treated the young, naive Heathcliff very badly and fell into disfavor with the family. Oh, how I pitied the poor boy.
Out on the wily, windy moors, we'd roll and fall in green. You had a temper.
One afternoon, Heathcliff and Catherine ventured into the Linton household to spy on the wealthy children, Edgar and Isabella. Catherine was bitten by their guard dog. She had to remain with the Lintons for 5 weeks. In this time, Miss Linton transformed the young girl into a young lady, educating her in manners and social graces, and young Edgar took a fancy to Catherine. Edgar and Catherine confessed their love for one another and became engaged. Catherine loved Heathcliff more, but still decided to marry Edgar. Plus, Henley begins to drink excessively and behaves abusively to Heathcliff. The poor lad is reminded of the great times he and Catherine had. He becomes jealous, and the neglected boy leaves the Heights.
My one dream, my only master. Too long I roam in the night.
When Heathcliff returns richer and handsomer, Catherine becomes giddy with happiness, and their affection makes Edgar uncomfortable. Heathcliff, now wealthy, poised, but full of revenge, decides to stay at Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff's deceitfulness causes Isabella to fall in love with him, and they elope. Many problems emerge. Catherine becomes ill, and Henley, who is now filled with more envy than ever, plans to kill Heathcliff and amass his great fortune. Heathcliff says he cannot never forgive Catherine for marrying someone else. Catherine gives birth to Cathy 2 months prematurely and dies in childbirth. Devastated, Heathcliff returns to the Heights filled with more revengeful thoughts and envy. After being abused by Heathcliff and others at the Heights, Isabella escapes to London, where she gives birth to Linton. She dies when Linton is 12. Henley dies as well from alcohol. Linton moves in with his uncle Edgar, but with Heathcliff still in the picture and being the biological father, he becomes more greedy and forces Linton to live with him. Cathy is sheltered by Edgar and grows up without any knowledge of the Heights, but once she is introduced, Cathy and Linton begin exchanging love letters. Cathy climbs over the wall to visit Linton. Heathcliff expresses his wish for the two to marry. Heathcliff wants them to marry so he can tie the bond between the two families once again. He locks Cathy into a room until they marry, and then the devious man locked me up so I couldn't intervene. In the end, Heathcliff has Catherine's casket dug up and opens it to stare at her face. When I was invited to be the maid at the Heights, Heathcliff became delirious and crazy about the idea of being reunited with his beloved Catherine once more. He ate nothing and became obsessed with this idea. Finally, he dies. He is now buried with one side of the casket open to Catherine.